Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thanks for that warning, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yep.
It is Thursday, and all of our guests today are brought to you by our friends at the Vancouver Giants. Just ahead of Farhan, the Giants would like to thank their fans for their support this season at the Langley Event Center and can't wait to welcome them back for 2023-2024. Get your season tickets for next year now at vancouvergiants.com/season tickets. Just before we get to Farhan, Rick, some news about Ethan Bear.
Yep, Ethan Bear is going to go to the World Hockey Championships, John. He's going to represent Canada, so he's the one Canuck player that I've been informed. We've been informed this morning that he's going to go to the World, so there you go. Oh, and Elias Pettersson's still working his insurance
Issues
out before he plays for Sweden.
Okay, some more Canuck news coming up later. Vancouver Canuck news. Meanwhile, we're joined now from TSN by Farhan Lalji. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir.
Oh!
How are you? I'm liking the lid. Liking the lid.
What's up, boys?
Is that Michael Jackson?
You've never looked better.
This is how you're supposed to wear these things, right?
No,
Yeah.
Michael
You're
Jackson.
asking me? I have no idea.
Very
Oh,
nice.
there you are.
Very nice.
What's up, boys?
You've got a good hat head. You've got a good hat head. You always have. Yeah.
You know what, though? Not ball caps. Like, I can wear other hats and pull it off, but ball caps don't work for me. I used to, occasionally I'll wear them, like, backwards. Not that I'm cool like that, but a frontwards ball cap generally doesn't work well. I feel like it sits up too high, and I don't know. It's not my thing.
No, I'm the same way. I'll if I'm wearing a ball cap, backwards, forwards, it used to work. Not anymore.
Big time.
I'm more of a visor guy. I'll wear a visor.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I could go in a
Kind of
million different
coaching
directions.
thing. Not a golf thing, but a coaching thing. I will wear a visor. I'll go there.
Yeah, famous visor wearers through the years. We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
All right.
Farhan might be one of them. Hey, the campaign to save SFU football, Tuesday the 25th, SFU's football day of giving. More on that a little bit later, but Farhan, just what does it mean to you and everybody involved in SFU football to have Amar Dolman involved?
Well, it's great. I mean, he gives you so much credibility and a platform, and for him to be able to step up and have this matter to him, and we know how much the BC Lions matter to him and what he's done to make that franchise better, and just having his involvement makes us better, assuming we can get back, right? And he's agreed to come up with a group of businessmen, including Ryan Beatty and a few others that want to support this cause and get behind it, and they're willing to match a number of donations that we're going to have with our giving day on the 25th. So, again, you could tell when you hear Amar Dolman speak on this issue that it matters to him, and very quickly, the entire football ecosystem matters to him, and it's taken him over. I talked to him the other day, and he was coaching his son's flag team this past weekend, and just the enjoyment he gets out of doing that, and the number of people that have come up to him and saying, thanks for what you're doing for SFU and how you're trying to help. So really good to have that kind of leadership, and it just shows you ownership matters.
And Farhan, Ryan touched on this earlier, but on Tuesday, where could people go to donate, or does that still have to get worked out?
Well, we're going to be sending out a link for that. We're trying to drive all the donations to that day. We have some people that have emailed us and have essentially pledged the money or committed the money. And then we know that we're going to add them to the total that day, but that'll be the day that everybody gets a chance to kind of go in and actually make that payment. And obviously, if things don't work out with the program, they'll receive their funding back. But, if you donate it, it's tax deductible. More than anything, we want to get the program back, and I know the university is out there saying that money's not an issue. We all know at some level in any of these decisions, money does play a part. That's not, that's not new information, even if it's not the primary issue. So our objective as a group of supporters is to go in there with the best possible package that addresses any possible question, because the program, it hasn't been great the last few years, right? And that's not a knock on the people involved. It just hasn't been funded the way it needs to. So we want to come back, and if we get this thing back on the rails, we want this to be the best version of SFU football ever, right? We want these kids to be able to walk into a completely different experience in the fall.
Let's switch gears here. Hockey. You were at both press conferences with players on Saturday, with Tocchet and Alvin on Monday as the Canucks wrap up their season. Patrick Alvin on Monday. Does he come across as more of a leader right now than he did when he first joined the Canucks?
I think he comes across more confident, and I think he comes across more decisive and clear-sighted in his vision. Because, when we first found out that Jim Rutherford wasn't going to speak, I think collectively the media had a bit of an eye roll, right? Because to this point, we haven't gotten anything of substance out of Patrick Allvin. And so now here we are thinking, okay, we got to go through this. And we have an owner that doesn't talk. Now we've got a general or a president that doesn't want to talk. And generally, that's the bit of a buffer. And you should be able to expect the president to talk. Obviously, Rutherford's still not happy with the coverage in and around the Bruce Boudreau decision. And he said that time that he wasn't going to talk anymore. So, yeah, we were skeptical. But I'll be honest with you. Even when Allvin didn't necessarily want to completely answer the question or go where we wanted him to go. He kind of had a bunch of context and talking a bit of a circle, but eventually he got back to it. And he did tell us how he felt about JT Miller when I asked about the trade, the importance of the Pettersson contract. Yes, it was important, but he wasn't going to commit to it. There were a number of different things. The buyouts, right? He was pretty clear-sighted in the fact he didn't want to go there and why he didn't want to go there. So for me, I think he looked like a general manager who knew what he wanted to do and that he was in charge, as opposed to before, you kind of still saw Jim Rutherford as in charge and Patrick didn't have as much to say and you didn't know who was actually making the decisions. I think certainly we got a better look at Allvin, and that was good for him and good for the organization.
So the big thing from Allvin, we all took Farhan, no buyouts. So how do you clear cap space? That's the big one for me. If they're not going to buy out anybody, then how are you going to clear cap space? Because they've been trying for 15 months to get rid of some bad contracts that can't do it. So how are they going to do it this summer?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think for the most part, Canuck fans should expect the band to be back together, right? And I think there's a hope that Philip Roenick and maybe a better version of Brock Besser and, like all of that kind of stuff, because they don't have the room. We know they're not going to spend on a backup goaltender, and they shouldn't, in my opinion, because if they are going to spend, there's other places. It was clear the one area he said he wanted to address was second or third line center. So they need to get that done. And really, I think if they're not going to buy anybody out, I don't think a trade of a Besser or a Garland is necessarily off the table, but I think it's going to have to be a hockey trade. I don't think they're going to add sweeteners to move those contracts. That strong need to do that maybe isn't going to be there as much based on how those players finished. But the Tyler Myers situation interests me, right? Because we've got that $5 million payment coming up later on in the summer. And then once that happens, if that contract gets movable, is that the decision that you wind up making? And it's an easier decision. There's no long-term pain. Yes, the owners have to write the check, for a player that's not going to play for them, but it does clear cap space. So, the injured players, right? Pearson, Pullman, Dermott. Let's see how they factor into all of it. But between that and Myers, and maybe a couple of expiring deals they walk away from, if they can get to that point where they can still maybe invest $3 million in a third line center, that's a good thing. The challenge becomes with all of these things. I think every team wants that second line center that they can put in as a third line center, but that guy wants to get paid like a second line center. So can they get enough quality at that spot? But it was clear. That's the one area. We didn't hear a lot of talk about defensemen. And he didn't bring up a lot of the moving money, whereas in previous press conferences, that's been front and center. Moving money, fix the D. Now we didn't hear much from them other than us asking it. He didn't emphasize it. It was just more about that third line center. So other than that, band is going to be back together, fans.
Yep.
Yeah, let's stay on that subject before we let you go, Farhan. I believe you tweeted out somewhere, I heard that you had a conversation with Oliver Ekman-Larsson after he was made available to the media on Saturday. And we heard about the broken foot of the World Championships and how it may or may not have affected his season. What should Vancouver fans expect from Oliver Ekman-Larsson this coming season, if indeed he's still a Canuck?
Well, I think fans should hope and expect that they can get year one version of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, right? Who wasn't an elite player, but he generally treaded water, right? You don't want what you saw last year where he was below replacement level. And they need to get him back to the point where he's a legitimate, NHL quality defenseman that can either be the third guy on the left side or the second guy on the left side and give you reasonable minutes. You worry, right? Because they can't overload him. If they overload him, they're setting himself up for injury. They're setting him up for failure. You want to try to get him into some better matchups. But, he told myself and Patrick Johnson that skating forward and backwards wasn't an issue. But anytime he had to pivot, turn, change direction, that it was a problem. He felt it. He noticed it. And it's not the injury, right? I mean, with all of these things, guys, it's not the injury in and of itself. It's the injury preventing you from improving. You got to spend your whole offseason just to get back to your pre-injury level, and that's not good, right? So I think that if they can get him back to year one version of OEL, and I think that's reasonable, I think that's a win.
Yeah.
You know, interviewing you has always been on my bucket hat list.
Oh, very good, Donnie.
Very nice.
Not bad.
Well,
not bad. You know what? I'm not going to say that's an improvement, but that's an improvement.
Just need a glove.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hendo, for sending it.
Oh,
thanks, Brian. Thanks for the support.
He got a freebie?
Yeah.
I thought he bucked up.
Yeah, we have to pay
Unbelievable.
For those.